You might notice that I've been not uploading videos as of late, and I can explain to you why that is the case. It's because I am quite busy with college work, and even if I'm not busy, there aren't really any good topics to discuss. So you know what? I'm gonna talk about a couple of really small topics, and we're gonna mount them all into one big topic enough to satisfy the YouTube gods for mid-rolls to be put in it. Incidentally, thanks to DDT.DJ, ChronoCypher, and Bongtrap for the pledges on Patreon, you guys are fantastic. First story, do you hate reboots? Do you hate your favorite franchises being made once again, except it was made to appeal to the lowest common denominators? Well, you're obviously a sexist and a misogynist. How dare you criticize reboots that are a lot more progressive than the last one? How dare you criticize reboots that are just infinitely worse quality-wise? These reboots appeal to the values of all of the progressives, which of course consist of a staggeringly large number of people. I understand that you guys are frustrated with the recent reboots as of late, but you know who is pissed off at a reboot right now? The Mary Sue. Of all the people who is pissed off at reboots, the Mary Sue is pissed off at a reboot. These are the same people who will go, "Oh, those man babies hating on the She-Ra reboot are just hilarious." Well, Mary Sue, we're going to laugh at you for this brief couple of moments.
No, I don't want the Black Buffy reboot, and here's why.
Really, Mary Sue? That's an incredibly racist opinion you got there. How dare you not want a reboot that is more inclusive and actually puts black people front and center? Now, of course, not wanting a Black Buffy reboot does not equate to racism. The fact that I have to explain that is incredibly baffling. But then again, we're talking about the same people that will associate anything with racism, sexism, and or misogyny. Isn't it nice to see these same people got pissed off by the entertainment media that they care about getting rebooted to appeal to the lowest common denominator? And the best case of all, the writer uses the exact same arguments that we've been using for decades regarding reboots, especially reboots that are trying to be progressive.
When the news broke over the weekend announcing that Joss Whedon was not only launching a Buffy reboot, but doing so with a black female lead, my reaction was a very heavy sigh.
I'm still quite baffled in how Joss Whedon can still get a job even after the revelation that he cheated on his wife and uses feminism as an excuse. I'm not kidding, I have an old video for that.
There was a time where this kind of news would have excited me in ways I can't even explain. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of my favorite shows in spite of many things, but not only I am not interested in a reboot, but this move to make the lead black, as reported by Deadline, is just a bad move on multiple levels for me. Don't get me wrong, it's not inclusive casting that I'm objecting to, I just want black women to get their own stories.
Wait, so you're telling me that minorities should get their own stories instead of hijacking existing stories and expecting results? Oh really, writer of the Mary Sue? Isn't that a racist thing to say? Are you saying that black people cannot play as Buffy, Mary Sue? How dare you say these racist things? Seriously, these are literally the same arguments that we use for quite literally any reboot that has diversity being put into it. But when we say it, it's bigotry, sexism, and racism. But when you say it, that is somehow a progressive statement. I know that Mary Sue is not very well known for their integrity, but I'm just pointing that out while also laughing at the same time. I want to sympathize with them and feeling angry that their favorite shows got rebooted, but considering that this is the Mary Sue we're talking about, whose favorite pastime is to shame on everyone that doesn't like reboots, why should anyone sympathize with them at all?
Any African-American actress who enters this role is forever going to be known as Black Buffy, and that's something I find frustrating.
Oh wow, writer actually recognized that diversity casting could only lead to people describing the character with her physical attribute rather than her character attribute. Is this the sign of a progressive realizing the faults of their arguments? Or is this the sign of a progressive just merely adopting the "it's okay when we do it" tactic? Or more accurately, it's okay when it's a show that we personally like? But for real though, the writer has a legitimately good argument regarding reboots.
Having a black showrunner and casting a black actress will not give ownership of this series to this new incarnation. From the very beginning, it will be held to an unreasonably high standard and will be compared in terms of writing, acting, etc. to the original. And if this show doesn't go on the last 7 seasons, it'll just be looked at this failed attempt to update a popular series. All the flaws will be its own, and anything good will be attributed to Whedon's influence.
I actually wholeheartedly agree with everything that you say on this paragraph, writer. Rebooting a popular series that has been widely praised for its characters, writing, acting, etc. would only result in said reboot to be compared to the original. What if the reboot is inferior? Wouldn't that be a disgrace, especially to the black lead for this Buffy reboot? Actually, wait a second, is it even confirmed that this black actress would actually be Buffy, or would it be a totally different character? So according to the article that you yourself cited, there's no confirmation that this black lead would be Buffy herself. It could be a totally different character with totally totally different names and totally different stories. Not only that, but at the time of this video, the show is in very early stages, as in it has no script and there are still many details in flux. But then again, the new Ghostbusters also had different characters but with pretty much the same story, so perhaps the writer has genuine concerns with this reboot. Either way, Mary Sue, if you want to criticize the reboots of your favorite shows, at least be respectful to those who criticize the reboots of their favorite shows. Second story, do I have to talk about the firing of James Gunn? I'm very sure I don't have to because everyone else have talked about it to death, and the only reason that you don't know about this news is if you're stuck on an island with no internet for the past couple of weeks. I honestly do not care if whether or not the firing was justified. If you're someone who likes Marvel like me, there's only one relevant question to be asked on this entire thing, which just so happened to be my personal take. Will Taika Waititi direct the next Guardians of the Galaxy? Because he already kind of did. The last and perhaps the biggest story for the day, do you want to see a hot take in just one picture?
Game developers need to stop listening to fans.
This is the sort of take that would incinerate your internet firewalls, but we are not done, ladies and gentlemen. This is just the beginning. The writer began talking about how the video game No Man's Sky is about to be patched up with new content. I have talked about No Man's Sky a couple of times before in this channel, and No Man's Sky is just a painfully shallow and disappointing game. Tons of people are disappointed that the content that the game delivered are not up to the promises. After 2 years, the game is going to receive an update called No Man's Sky Next, which will promise a lot of things like multiplayer and tons of other content. 2 years too late, Hello Games. Anyone else might as well play Elite Dangerous by now. So what does No Man's Sky have to do with all of this? Well, the writer attempts to support their hot take from the title by using this game as an example, which is like me saying to you that the sun isn't really that hot, and I prove it by dropping you in the Sahara Desert.
Over the last week, we've seen a lot of stuff in the press regarding the launch of No Man's Sky Next, a massive near re-release of a game that was first released back in 2016 among a hailstorm of virulent criticisms. Some of the stories coming from Hello Games lead Sean Murray regarding the feedback that the team received are nothing short of horrific.
This is a really nice deflective tactic, one that a lot of people use in order to either dismiss or ignore all the criticisms, focusing on the toxic behaviors of the fans. Do you know why I consider this a deflective tactic? Because the conversation starts with, toxic fans are toxic, and it ends with, that's horrible and I do not condone that. Nowhere in that conversation the real issues that people actually have are actually discussed. Instead, we have to talk about something that is so painfully obvious. You are pretty brave to say that death threats are horrible. Maybe you'll say more controversial statements such as, don't insult people, that's not very nice. Beyond that really controversial statement, the writer decides to completely misrepresent what people's problems are with No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky wasn't trying to be just another space game with action and shooty bangs and multiplayer heroics. It was trying to be a video game equivalent of Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot or one of John Paul Sartre's novel.
Writer, they advertised multiplayer. They didn't deliver multiplayer until 2 years later. Also, I can't be the only one who finds those references unbelievably pretentious.
No Man's Sky was also never gonna be as popular or mainstream as Mass Effect or Halo because of that theme. Unfortunately, a series of PR bungles from both Hello Games and Sony led people to believe that No Man's Sky would be something mainstream. Then they started to play, realized that it was a weird experiment of a game, and collectively spat the dummy.
That's not the problem that people have with No Man's Sky, but nice try, writer. Maybe next time you'll represent the argument 0.2% more accurately.
I'm not gonna get drawn into the years-long debate about whether Sean Murray lied about No Man's Sky. Apparently that was justification enough to send him and his team death threats.
There's another deflection, writer. Death threats are horrible, people shouldn't do that. Now let's focus on the actual problems. Sorry, what? No Man's Sky didn't do nothing? Well, that's an incredibly radioactive take that will cause a staggering amount of disagreement, writer.
What I will say is that people expected multiplayer and a far more detailed single-player game than what they got, and PR is absolutely to blame for that.
It is so rich and detailed that the universe inside the game felt hollow and empty. But of course it's the PR to blame, what do I know?
The game should have been left in its original state. Yes, it disappointed some people, and I'm sure made plenty swear off ever buying a Hello Games game again, but the developer should have stuck to his vision, and the consumer should have led it.
Now, in some cases, I agree that the developer should stick to their vision, but No Man's Sky is a terrible example to illustrate that. No Man's Sky is a game that didn't deliver any of its fundamental promises. To say that the game developers should stick to this decision is like saying that a burger joint should stick to their decision of selling cheeseburgers without cheese. All of these false promises will result in customers getting ripped off, having their money lost, and of course having them getting really mad at social media to the people responsible. You are totally mad to suggest that game developers should stick to their vision reputation of not giving what's been promised to the customers. And if that's not what you're saying, maybe don't use No Man's Sky as an example.
Subsequent updates to No Man's Sky, as well as the features promised in Next, have significantly diluted the message, theme, and aesthetics of the original game, and now it has morphed into just another space game. It doesn't really tell us anything anymore because it's too busy trying to be fun.
Implying that No Man's Sky is something unique and original before the next update. Writer, No Man's Sky is baby's first Elite Dangerous, and I'm very sure that EVE Online will let you do a lot more things in there, assuming you have the necessary risk to make EVE Online as time-consuming to your life as an actual full-time job.
Here's the great secret with art that people tend to forget about when it comes to games. You, as the audience, don't have to like everything. In fact, if you do like everything, that means that everything has been homogenized to the point where it can no longer be art. It is morphed into a pure product play.
This would have been a strong argument if you weren't talking about No Man's Sky! I have a solution to make this article better actually. Remove the entirety of the previous paragraphs, start from this paragraph, and change the title into No Man's Sky haters can shove their heads up their asses. Of course not everything should appeal to everyone, writer, but trying to appeal to a niche market is not the same thing as not delivering what's promised. Sure, Senran Kagura doesn't have to appeal to anyone who doesn't like fanservice games, but at least they actually deliver.
It's no longer challenging or stimulating because it's too concerned with upsetting. It no longer shares a message because it can't be sure the audience will be receptive to the message. It has become bland, empty content.
Jesus Christ, writer, how long are you going to deny the issues that No Man's Sky have and respond to arguments that absolutely nobody makes? Also, seriously? No Man's Sky shares a message? What, the message that it's totally okay to rip customers off? Don't pretend that No Man's Sky is some artistic genius, you freaking hipster art snob.
It's too easy to change what's in a game via a patch or update, and the dynamic between players and the game developers means that there's now the expectation that the creators will change things to suit the fans. Don't like the ending of a game? Embark on a campaign to harass and terrify the developers into writing you a new ending.
Ooh, nice. Another deflection. Let me counter that in 2 sentences, writer. Death threats are horrible. People shouldn't do that. Did you get those 2 sentences? Cool. Prepare for this following statement because you ain't gonna deflect this. The endings of Mass Effect 3 are horrible pieces of garbage straight out of a Hikikomori's apartment, and BioWare should be ashamed of making this product.
If you look at game development, everything that's reasonably prominent is borrowing features from everything else to the point where it's getting hard to see any genuine identity in any of them. It's Borg-like assimilation. Everything's open world, and everything that's not is a battle royale. While
I somewhat agree with this incredibly hyperbolic paragraph, you are writing this with the underlying premise that No Man's Sky is a unique game. Of course, video games are gonna borrow mechanics from other video games. In a lot of cases, they borrow them because those mechanics actually work. Don't pretend that No Man's Sky is this unique, genius, artistic form of a game. Jesus Christ, writer.
You can't make an experimental game that's designed to make people dwell on the existential meaning of it all, because most people haven't got a clue what existentialism is, much less have read Sartre or Kierkegaard. Game creatives should stop listening to what fans want when it comes to the ideas, gameplay, structure, and narrative of their work. Most fans are not even remotely skilled in any creative field, and asking them to their opinions on creative decisions is like having 1,000 people with no medical experience yelling at a surgeon and telling him how to do his job.
This paragraph is so wrong. First of all, putting quotes on the word fans just shows to me that you're just giving them a middle finger. Second of all, you're basically saying that a fan's criticism is not valid unless they are experienced in game development, which is about as valid as saying that the customers need to be Gordon Ramsay in order to know whether or not a food tastes horrible. And third of all, that analogy is incredibly horrendous because we are assuming that the surgeon actually knows how to do his job. If that's the analogy, then your defense is like saying that a surgeon should not listen to people and that they are well within their rights to operate their patients with a freaking chainsaw.